My packages vanished. Cameras failed. Neighbors went silent. What started as missing mail spiraled into a suburban conspiracy led by the HOA queen herself. So I fought back, with paint traps, secret footage, and a lawsuit that shook the neighborhood to its core. Welcome to War on Whispering Pines. It started with something as ordinary as an online order. A new wireless mouse, a set of noise-canceling headphones, a bag of coffee beans I couldn't find locally. Just the sort of things that make modern life a little smoother. For the first few months after moving to Chantilly, Virginia, everything went perfectly. Packages arrived right on time, placed neatly on my porch by polite delivery drivers who waved at my doorbell camera before walking off. Life in the suburbs had the calm rhythm I'd been craving. Then one Tuesday morning I opened my front door to find nothing but a faint rectangle of dust where my latest delivery should have been. I assumed it was an honest mistake. Maybe the courier left it with a neighbor. I checked the tracking page which said delivered, left at front door. I knocked on the doors next to mine and people smiled sympathetically but shook their heads. One woman mentioned that packages had gone missing around here before, but in the tone of someone afraid to say more. The next week, another parcel vanished, a small box containing a monitor stand I'd been waiting for. I called UPS, then Amazon, then the local post office, hopping between hold music and scripted apologies. Every representative confirmed the same thing. Delivery completed, photo proof attached. Sure enough, each image showed my porch with the box sitting there in perfect daylight. That was the moment the calm cracked. I bought a new video doorbell and a motion-activated camera to mount under the eaves. I felt almost smug watching the little red recording light flicker, a modern moat around my modest castle. For 3 days, everything worked fine. On the 4th, the camera went black. When I checked the app, it said, "Device disconnected." I went outside and found the power cable cleanly unplugged. That same day, another delivery disappeared. By then, I had memorized the patrol routes of delivery trucks on our street. I noticed how quiet it got around noon, how the mail carrier parked for lunch right across from my driveway. The absence of noise began to feel suspicious. I walked the perimeter of my house at night with a flashlight, half expecting to see footprints or wheel marks. But there was only my own reflection in the windows. Then came the visit. Karen, the president of our homeowners association, stopped by one afternoon as I was trimming the hedge. She was the type who spoke like she was auditioning for a local commercial. Perfect smile, clipboard in hand, every sentence rehearsed. "Nick," she began, tilting her head with concern, "I couldn't help noticing all those deliveries you've been getting. You might want to be careful. We've had some issues with porch theft lately. Sometimes insurance premiums can rise for the whole neighborhood if certain properties become targets." The way she said targets made it sound less like advice and more like a warning. I thanked her, pretending to appreciate the tip, though my gut told me she wasn't really there to help. She lingered, eyes scanning my porch as if expecting to find evidence of my irresponsibility. When she finally left, I realized she hadn't once asked if I was missing anything, just implied that my habits were the problem. That night, I filed a police report online. It felt pointless, but at least it was something. The officer who called back the next day was polite yet weary. I could almost hear him shrug over the phone. "Without a suspect's face on camera, sir, it's nearly impossible to pursue," he said. "Could be kids, could be opportunists following the trucks. Just keep documenting." So I started a log. Dates, times, tracking numbers, every vanished item meticulously recorded. I thought maybe writing it down would calm me, but instead it only amplified the pattern. The disappearances always happened between 10 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon. always after a delivery confirmation photo. Someone was watching. Each creak on my porch now made me pause mid-sentence during work calls. I found myself glancing at the door every few minutes, coffee cooling beside the keyboard. The house that had felt like a peaceful escape began to hum with tension, a silent, unseen presence hovering just beyond the railing. And though I didn't know it yet, this was only the beginning of something much uglier hiding behind those manicured lawns and HOA smiles. It didn't take long before I realized I wasn't the only one losing packages, just the only one stubborn enough to keep talking about it. After another order disappeared, a coffee grinder I'd splurged on, I posted a thread on Twitter. I detailed everything: dates, times, the camera failures, the perfect delivery photos that never matched reality. I ended it with a question. Anyone else in Chantilly losing deliveries? This can't be just me. I expected a couple of likes, maybe a pity retweet. What I got was a flood. Private messages came in faster than I could read them. Dozens of people, all from the neighborhood, sharing eerily similar stories. Packages that vanished, doorbell cams that glitched, even odd notes left in mailboxes warning about unsafe delivery volumes. One guy said he'd stopped ordering online entirely because it became too much of a gamble. I created a private group chat and invited everyone who reached out. We called it Box Watch, which started as a joke but stuck. Within a few days, there were over 20 of us, all charting our missing deliveries like amateur detectives. We made a Google map and pinned addresses where boxes had disappeared. A pattern emerged. Most thefts occurred on Tuesdays and Thursdays between 10 and 1. A strangely consistent schedule for random porch pirates. But the strangest thing wasn't the timing. It was the silence. Nearly everyone I spoke to had the same hesitant tone, the same reluctance to report anything formally. A woman named Linda, 2 streets over, told me that after she filed a complaint about her missing blender, she received a letter from the HOA stating her front door did not conform to neighborhood color standards, and that she'd be fined if it wasn't repainted in 2 weeks. Another member, Rick, shared a story about being warned for visible clutter because his recycling bin was out for too long, just 2 days after he questioned Karen about a missing package at the community meeting. It became clear that speaking up came with consequences. The fines were always vague: mailbox alignment, lawn edge compliance, improper curtain color. Small things that could be enforced at anyone's whim, and were. The HOA wasn't just managing the community, it was policing silence. Karen, of course, remained a smiling enigma throughout. She hosted neighborhood brunches, walked her dog precisely at 9 every morning, and reminded us all in the monthly newsletter to keep our homes HOA proud and theft aware. That last one stung. Then something clicked for me. If Karen was the president of the HOA, she had access to architectural approval reports, landscaping photos, and incident forms. She could issue warnings without oversight. She had the authority to fine anyone for basically breathing wrong, especially if they were making noise. And yet, when I tried bringing up the thefts again, this time casually during a block party near the cul-de-sac, she brushed it off with practiced ease. "It's probably those kids from the other side of the highway," she said, sipping from a red Solo cup. "Or people following delivery vans. You know how it is." Then she leaned in just a little too close and added, "Besides, Nick, you don't want to seem paranoid. That's not a good look for newcomers." The chill behind her smile made my skin crawl. Back in the Box Watch chat, we started planning. We needed a trap, or at least something more concrete than stolen blenders and missing smart bulbs. We brainstormed: decoy boxes, hidden cameras, motion sensors, UV powder. Someone suggested planting a GPS tracker in a fake delivery and seeing where it ended up. The group pulsed with a weird kind of energy. We weren't just neighbors anymore, we were allies. Some were scared, some were furious, but most of us were tired of being treated like we were the problem. We had all tried to follow the rules, stay polite, stay quiet, but the silence hadn't protected us. It had enabled whoever was doing this. I started planning my own decoy drop. A fake package, just believable enough, with a motion-triggered camera watching it from an angle no one could easily reach. I even printed my name on the label to make it look authentic. But before I could set it up, my camera system, the new one, went offline again. Not just disconnected. Wiped. The app read, "No devices available." The feed was gone. That night, someone knocked on my door. I opened it to find a man in his 60s, nervous, holding a manila envelope. "You don't know me," he said quietly, "but I've been watching your posts." I didn't want to say anything because, well, last year my wife got fined $500 for unauthorized mailbox design right after she complained about a missing package. He handed me the envelope and walked away. Inside were HOA notices, photos of their mailbox, and a timeline of his package thefts. The pattern matched mine exactly. That was the night I stopped wondering if someone was watching. I knew. It took me 3 days to put together the first trap. I wanted it to be simple, something that looked like just another Amazon box dropped off on a lazy Thursday morning. I filled it with crumpled newspaper and a layer of bubble wrap to make it feel authentic. Hidden inside was a small GPS tracker I'd bought online and a slim spy camera wedged beneath a false bottom. Everything was synced to my phone. It wasn't exactly Mission Impossible tech, but it was good enough to answer one question. Where the hell were my packages going? I placed the box on my porch at 9:45 in the morning, just ahead of our mystery thief's preferred time frame. Then waited. From my upstairs office, I had a perfect view of the front steps. I kept one eye on the window and the other on the camera feed. By 11:15, the GPS suddenly pinged. The box was on the move. But just as I clicked into the video stream, static. My phone screen went black. The camera had cut out again. When I went down to check, the box was gone. Clean lift. No sign of struggle, no scuff marks. Whoever took it knew exactly what they were doing. Back in the BoxWatch chat, I shared the result. A few people encouraged me, said it was a good start. But one guy, Brian, always polite, always very eager, chimed in immediately. "Maybe you shouldn't have told the group about the trap beforehand," he wrote. "Could be someone here isn't who they say they are." That stopped the chat cold. No one replied for nearly an hour. I stared at his message, wondering if it was a warning or a threat, or just a bit of paranoia typed too quickly. But it stayed with me. And from that moment on, I stopped announcing my plans. The next decoy was more elaborate. This time I used an actual delivery, a duplicate order of a monitor arm, rigged with a capsule of UV reactive powder packed inside a spring-loaded pouch. When the box was opened, it would burst outward, fine particles of long-lasting violet dust, invisible under normal light but bright as a flare under black light. I called it the paint bomb, though technically it wasn't paint, just something that stuck like guilt. I set up 2 separate cameras, one overhead, one angled from the garage, and both hardwired. No Wi-Fi this time. I used a UPS pickup window to ensure the delivery landed during our usual theft window. Thursday, between 10 and 1. At 10:42, the delivery van rolled up. The driver dropped the package right at the center of the porch. He even waved at the camera. By 11:26, the box was gone. This time the cameras caught everything. A figure approached the porch wearing gloves, oversized sunglasses, and a floppy sun hat. They moved with mechanical precision, stepping only where there was shade. As they bent down to grab the box, the paint bomb exploded with a soft whoosh. coating their hands, chest, and neck with that sticky violet powder. They bolted, fast, ducking around the side yard and disappearing behind the fence. I watched the playback 5 times. Despite the disguise, one detail stood out, a faint glint of red polish on the fingers beneath the gloves. That afternoon, Karen stopped by. She stood at the edge of my driveway, holding a newsletter and smiling like a door-to-door politician. "Nick," she called out cheerfully, "thought I'd drop off the updated HOA guidelines. We're cracking down on porch clutter this month. Lots of people leaving packages out too long." I walked out slowly, meeting her halfway. Up close, I noticed she was wearing a scarf around her neck, unusual for a 70-degree day, and latex gloves. She handed me the paper with an overly friendly nod, but her eyes darted toward my porch. "Everything okay?" I asked, feigning casual curiosity. "Oh yes, just making the rounds," she replied. "We all have to do our part to keep things secure." There was a faint smear of violet under her left earlobe, barely visible. "Unless you were looking for it." I didn't say a word, just smiled, took the newsletter, and nodded like a good little resident. Back inside, I downloaded the footage and saved it to 3 separate encrypted drives. I didn't know what I'd need for the police, but I knew I had something now. Not just suspicion, not just chat room theories, but video proof. The next day, Ellie from Boxwatch, our resident tech whiz, messaged me privately. "We should talk. I think I found something." She'd been digging into digital footprints and stumbled on a small-time e-commerce site called Great Deals VA. Everything about it looked shady. No company address, anonymous product listings, prices slashed by more than half. But what caught her eye was the registration record. The domain was tied to a personal email address. The name on that email? Jessica Bradley, Karen's daughter. Ellie didn't waste time with pleasantries when we met. She showed up on my porch early Saturday morning, laptop under one arm, coffee in the other, eyes bloodshot but laser-focused. "You're going to want to sit down," she said. I did. Inside, she opened her laptop and walked me through everything she'd found. The site, Great Deals VA, had all the hallmarks of a quick and dirty drop-shipping hustle. But instead of generic phone cases or novelty socks, it was full of name-brand electronics, household gadgets, unopened cosmetics, even baby monitors. Most of it listed as open box, no retail packaging or the classic customer return unused. I cross-referenced 27 of the listings with timestamps and item descriptions people in Boxwatch reported stolen, Ellie said, tapping rapidly. 15 are exact matches, not just category, on the exact product codes. Then she showed me the domain registration. It was masked by a privacy service, but the domain's SSL certificate was issued to an email linked to Jessica Bradley, Karen's daughter. "You know what this is, right?" Ellie asked, eyes locked on mine. "This isn't some teenager stealing mail for fun. This is a pipeline. We had enough circumstantial evidence to take to the police, and we planned to. But I wasn't done. Not yet. I asked Ellie to help me monitor the site in real time. I wanted to catch something in the act. So we waited. Monday morning, a new listing appeared. A Logitech wireless mouse. Same model, same SKU number as the one I'd had stolen almost 2 months earlier. I messaged a member of Boxwatch, Tom, whose daughter had lost a Bluetooth speaker last week. He scrolled the site and spotted the exact speaker, distinctive dented corner and all, in one of the photos. That was it. We made the decision to buy one of the stolen items. Ellie created a burner profile and ordered a mechanical keyboard, the exact one that had gone missing from another group member's porch 2 weeks ago. The shipping confirmation came the next day. 3 days later, the package arrived at her P.O. box. Same item, slightly repackaged, no tags. But inside the cardboard was a faded Amazon warehouse sticker with a QR code, and the original shipping label, barely visible underneath the one addressed to Ellie's alias. It had originally been shipped to Rick, one of the guys in Boxwatch. His name was still partially legible through the peeled-away sticker. We now had a full chain of evidence. A stolen item, relisted online, purchased by one of us and received with a partial original label intact. Ellie and I spent the entire night building the report. Screenshots, logs, timestamps, cross-verified delivery times, maps of the neighborhood, GPS data from my failed trap. We uploaded everything to a shared encrypted folder. All we needed now was one last nail in the coffin, a live handoff. A moment caught red-handed. I set up one final bait box, this time with a double-layer system. The top of the box was packed with UV powder, but beneath it, hidden in the base, was a small motion-activated GoPro that would start recording only after movement. The goal was to avoid detection by wireless jammers or preemptive signal blockers. I didn't tell anyone in Boxwatch, not even Ellie. I placed the box at 10 in the morning, a fake shipment from a non-existent online electronics boutique addressed to me. I went back inside and watched the feed silently from a laptop. At 11:07, a familiar silhouette appeared on screen. It was Karen. No sun hat this time, no gloves. Just her in a zip-up hoodie and yoga pants, eyes darting left and right. She stepped onto the porch, bent down, lifted the box, and the powder exploded. This time I hadn't just packed for subtlety. I'd used ultra-fine, high-adherence UV dye, the kind used in anti-theft devices at banks. It splashed up her arms and across her chest, leaving a faint shimmer of violet even in daylight. She gasped, dropped the box, and stumbled backward off the porch. But she didn't run. She pulled out her phone and made a call. That night she showed up at my door again. She wore a bulky scarf, but I could still see the faint discoloration around her collarbone. "Nick," she said sweetly, "we need to talk. There's been a misunderstanding." I smiled. "You'll want to talk to the police. I'll be doing the same in the morning." She didn't flinch. "If you're going to cause trouble," she said, her voice suddenly flat, "I suggest you look very closely at your own HOA compliance record. You've got 3 separate violations that could lead to fines and property assessments." "You mean like the package theft warning I submitted 2 months ago?" I asked. She didn't answer, just stared at me for a long moment. Then with an eerie calm, she said, "Not everyone in this neighborhood is on your side." And then she left. That was when I knew. We had a leak. I opened up the group chat and started scanning through message histories. One name stood out, Brian, always a little too helpful, always the first to volunteer, the first to offer advice, the first to echo whatever Karen had said publicly. I remembered now. He'd discouraged me from using the first trap. He'd said someone in the group might not be who they seem. And that was the irony. He was the one. I checked the IP logs on the shared folder Ellie and I had been using. Sure enough, one access point didn't match. Someone had downloaded the video footage the same day Karen showed up glowing like a rave dancer. The access had come from Brian's house. The morning after Karen's visit, I walked into the police station with a flash drive in my pocket, a folder under my arm, and a coffee I forgot to drink. I didn't have to say much. The officer at the front desk barely glanced at the folder before waving me through to the back. I'd spoken to him before, Officer Lindstrom, patient but skeptical. This time, when I handed him the drive and opened the folder, his expression shifted. Inside were screenshots from the GoPro, side-by-side comparisons of delivery logs, UV photos, domain records, the keyboard Ellie had received with Rick's shipping label barely peeled off, and a map of where each stolen package had reappeared on the Great Deals VA site. Lindstrom didn't even finish scrolling before standing up and saying, "I need to make a call." By the end of the day, the warrant was signed. The police moved fast, faster than I expected. That same evening, a cruiser rolled up to Karen's house with 2 unmarked vehicles behind it. Neighbors watched from their lawns with the same strange cocktail of curiosity and denial, like they were seeing a neighbor's Christmas lights catch fire. I stood on my porch, arms crossed, and watched as Karen stepped outside in a robe and slippers, her expression unreadable. She didn't resist. She didn't even speak, just looked once across the street at me, and then turned back toward the officers. They escorted her into the back seat of the car, and the moment the door closed, the spell broke. The next 48 hours were chaos. Ellie and I were called in for statements. So were Tom, Rick, Linda, and 6 others from Boxwatch. Everyone had their own documentation, receipts, stolen items they'd recovered. When the police searched Karen's home, they found a back room packed with shelves of merchandise, electronics, cosmetics, unopened Amazon boxes, all cataloged with colored stickers. A label printer sat on the desk next to her computer. But that wasn't the part that made headlines. That came when they searched her computer. The police found administrator access to Great Deals VA, email correspondence with her daughter Jessica about inventory, and total most damning, a shared spreadsheet titled Corny Porch Flow, corn with names, addresses, and delivery patterns of over 50 residents. There were notes in the margins like usually not home MW, has ring cam, disabled, resistant, needs HOA pressure, and next to my name, aggressive, push fines if needed. Karen had built an entire mini black market operation out of her living room. Jessica, for her part, had already packed up and disappeared by the time the warrant dropped. Her apartment in Baltimore was empty, her phone disconnected. She was officially a person of interest, and unofficially already gone. And Brian? His story unraveled quickly. He denied everything at first, said the IP logs were a mistake, claimed his router had been compromised. But when the police confronted him with the leaked video timestamps and messages he'd forwarded from our chat to Karen's email, he folded like a lawn chair. He admitted to passing along our plans in exchange for leniency, meaning Karen promised to wipe his HOA fines if he kept her in the loop. He never took a cut from the site, he claimed, just didn't want to rock the boat. Karen's official statement, released through her lawyer, was a masterpiece of delusion. My client was merely retrieving unclaimed packages to prevent liability issues on HOA property. Any items sold online were duplicates or donations from neighbors. The so-called evidence has been misinterpreted. Sure, because everyone keeps a spreadsheet of their neighbors' routines and a UV-stained hoodie just in case. The local news loved it. HOA president busted in package theft ring. The headline blared across every screen for a week. Neighbors who'd once defended Karen, who hosted potlucks and volunteered at the library, now whispered about her like she'd always been suspicious. The denial was almost comical. The civil suit came next. 11 of us filed jointly. Between stolen goods, emotional distress, and property damage from tampering with surveillance equipment, we were suing for a combined $300,000. Karen's house, car, and all remaining assets were frozen pending outcome. Her lawyer tried to negotiate. He offered a settlement in the mid-5 figures, citing community preservation and unnecessary escalation. We declined. During the first hearing, I sat across from her in the courtroom. She wore a beige sweater and no makeup, a woman stripped of her persona. She didn't look at me. She didn't look at anyone. Her lawyer did all the talking, slippery, polite, full of context and misunderstandings. Our lawyer didn't need theatrics. He laid out the timeline, the footage, the GPS logs, the shipment with Rick's sticker. He showed the spreadsheet. The judge didn't blink. Midway through, someone in the gallery gasped when the UV photos were shown. One of them, blown up on the screen, showed Karen with her hands glowing like some radioactive supervillain, arms stained from wrist to elbow in bright violet. That image ended up on Reddit, then Twitter, then national news. Memes followed. Purple Karen. Glow up gone wrong. My personal favorite. You can't HOA your way out of this one. The criminal charges proceeded in parallel. Theft, fraud, trespassing, tampering with private surveillance equipment. Brian took a plea deal and agreed to testify in exchange for reduced charges. The rest would come later. For now, we had done what nobody thought was possible. We'd made her visible. The sentence came down on a Thursday morning in early October. The kind of crisp golden morning where everything feels like it should be peaceful. Karen was given 6 months in county jail, followed by 3 years of supervised probation, plus a restitution order totaling $212,000. The restitution would be split between the plaintiffs of the civil case, with the remainder garnished from future earnings or seized assets. It wasn't everything we'd hoped for. No perp walk, no Netflix documentary deal, no teary apology from the HOA queen herself. But it was real, and it was public. And most importantly, it was over. Karen didn't speak in court, not when the sentence was read, not when the judge lectured her on community trust, and not even when the bailiff cuffed her and walked her out. She just kept that same blank stare she'd worn since the trial started. The only real reaction came from her lawyer. Some barely contained fury in the way he slammed his briefcase shut like the world had personally betrayed him. Jessica Bradley was never located. With Karen behind bars, the Homeowners Association entered free fall. The HOA board, which once operated with the precision of a Roman legion, crumbled in a matter of days. The treasurer resigned via email. The secretary claimed complete ignorance and victimhood. The vice president, some guy named Alan who no one had seen in months, tried to call an emergency meeting and then ghosted the entire neighborhood after. No one mourned the collapse. A few weeks later, the county issued a formal review of the HOA's charter. They temporarily suspended its authority, transferring management to a third-party administrative firm while residents voted on how to restructure or dissolve entirely. In the meantime, the neighborhood breathed. Lawns grew a little wilder. Someone painted their door bright orange and no one said a word. Wind chimes banned under Karen's old noise regulation clause appeared on nearly every porch like battle flags. One guy even installed a 10-foot-tall metal dinosaur sculpture in his yard. It didn't match a single architectural guideline. Everyone loved it. Ellie, who at this point could have run for mayor, was nominated to serve as interim community liaison. She accepted under one condition: total transparency. No secret fines, no bullying. Every resident would have access to meeting minutes, financial records, and complaint logs. The HOA website was overhauled. Anonymous fines? Gone. Predatory surveillance? Deactivated. In their place, a community forum, a shared maintenance calendar, and a weekly email simply titled, "What's up, neighbors?" As for me, I received a check for $26,000 as part of the civil settlement. Not life-changing money, but enough to right a lot of wrongs. I used a chunk of it to install a commercial-grade camera system with encrypted backups and independent power. The rest went into an online project I called Porch Watch, an open-source resource hub for anyone dealing with package theft, HOA abuse, or neighbor harassment. It included guides for legal recourse, best practices for documentation, and sample community organizing templates. What surprised me most wasn't the money or even the vindication. It was the way people started showing up again. Linda, who once hesitated to speak above a whisper, began organizing weekend potlucks. Rick taught a free workshop on security basics and home automation. Even the guy with the dinosaur sculpture, turns out his name's Dennis, offered to paint mailboxes for anyone who wanted theirs redone. For free. What we'd all assumed was a tight-knit, pleasant suburb had actually been a fearful place wrapped in rules and fine print. With the silence broken, something better had room to grow. The final nail in the coffin came when the county prosecutor launched an inquiry into other HOAs in the region and investigating reports of extortion, fraudulent fines, and misuse of authority. Karen had kicked open a door she thought was sealed shut. Turns out a lot of people had stories, and now, finally, people were willing to tell them. Boxwatch remained active even as the emergency that created it passed. We still shared odd sightings, delivery schedules, and the occasional joke about purple handprints. But more than that, we stayed connected. The very thing Karen had tried to prevent. We weren't just neighbors now. We were a network. 6 months later, the neighborhood didn't just feel different. It felt awake. One Saturday evening in April, we held what Ellie jokingly called the first annual Community Freedom Festival. There were string lights draped between porch columns, folding tables loaded with potluck dishes, and someone even brought in a rented cotton candy machine. Kids darted between yards, dogs barked, laughter rolled across lawns like music. For the first time since I'd moved in, it actually felt like a place people wanted to live. I set up a little booth with a banner that read, "Porch Watch, know your rights, protect your packages." It was more tongue-in-cheek than serious. A table covered with flyers, checklists, and a display of old wiped surveillance cameras labeled "Retired Veterans." People chuckled. Some shared their own stories, and a few even brought cookies. About halfway through the evening, a little girl, maybe 7 or 8, walked up to my table holding her dad's hand. She looked up at the framed photo we'd propped up for effect. Karen's face caught mid-freeze frame, splashed with violet UV powder, eyes wide, mouth open, the most infamous frame from the footage that changed everything. "Is that the bad lady?" the girl asked. Her dad grimaced. "Sort of, honey." She leaned closer, squinting. "That paint looks really purple. Did it come off?" I smiled. "Not easily," I said. "I'm told some of it's still under her fingernails." The dad laughed, covering his mouth, then looked at me and said, "Man, that picture got me through a rough week at work. You should sell prints." I didn't. But I did add a little button to the Porch Watch site that read, "Make HOA fraud glow again." Just for fun. Later in the evening, I pulled out a blacklight flashlight and gave a quick demo. I'd brought a sample patch of the UV powder sprayed onto fabric. Under regular light, it looked like a slightly dusty rag. Under the blacklight, it flared to life, glowing streaks of ghostly purple. Someone in the crowd called out, "Let's hope no one here starts glowing." "Not unless you touch this," I grinned, holding up the decoy box I'd brought along, now just a trophy retired from service. She never saw it coming. That got a big laugh. Someone handed me a beer. Ellie raised a toast from across the yard. Before the night ended, I took a walk past the old HOA office, once Karen's fortress of forms and fines. The building was dark now, empty. The bulletin board out front still had a faded flyer about trash can positioning policies, curling at the corners. I tore it down. On my way home, I passed Dennis's yard. The dinosaur sculpture had on a pair of sunglasses and a mailbox flag duct taped to its tiny arm. Someone had added a sign around its neck, "Official HOA Watch Lizard." I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my flashlight. When I reached my porch, I paused under the camera, the new one with redundant backups and a battery that could outlast a hurricane. I looked up, gave a quick wink, and stepped inside. Above my door, I'd installed a little plaque. It read, "Smile, you're on camera, and possibly wearing UV paint." Just in case anyone forgot,